This headline in the New Republic, column, article, piece of writing offered by Marcy Wheeler. It says, yes, Trump obstructed justice, and William Barr is helping him to cover it up, end quote. We have Marcy Wheeler on the air right now. Marcy, hello.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So you make I don't know if you were involved in the headline writing. The headline makes a bold claim. Say more.
Well, I didn't do the headline, but I'll back the headline. So what we know is that Mueller turned over his report to Attorney General Barr Friday afternoon. And last night, we got a memo from Barr saying Mueller did not come to a conclusion about whether or not Trump obstructed justice or not. He specifically said it's not an exoneration. And without explaining why he did so, Barr said, well, I sat down with Rod Rosenstein and we decided that there's not obstruction of justice. And important to that was his portrayal of what Mueller investigated. And Rosenstein was involved, so maybe this is accurate, but it's not entirely clear given what Mueller has shown thus far in his investigation. Because the memo yesterday only addresses whether the Trump campaign conspired with the Russian government to basically hack and leak Hillary's emails or to do the trolling stuff. But the important thing is the hack and leak. It doesn't address, for example, whether the Trump campaign conspired with Russians to do so. It doesn't address whether the Trump campaign conspired with WikiLeaks to do so. And we know that Roger Stone is headed to trial on covering up that he did so. And that's important because in finding that Trump did not obstruct justice, Barr said, well, there was no underlying crime to obstruct. So therefore, he couldn't have obstructed justice, clean bill of health. And not only does that not make sense, does that not reflect the public record, but it also conflicts with what Barr said 3 times in his confirmation hearing under sworn testimony.
This is, you added something to, and I will offer it now as well, and this will probably be the last time. No, it won't be the last time this week. That to me, I would have welcomed this back in the day if we were going to do a moot court on this argument. I would have welcomed this as the opening salvo argument, because to me the pivot would have been much more powerful than the assertion. And his assertion, as you well stated, was, well, there's no attempt to try to block justice because there was no justice to block. There was no underlying crime. And your argument, my argument has been, well, actually, the converse could be true. Maybe the reason there was no chargeable conspiracy was because of obstruction of justice. You make another one. Well, maybe there was a different crime. Maybe, yeah, this quoted piece did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities, end quote. Maybe the thing that happens before that capitalized T was, well, any number of crimes could have been committed, any kind of misconduct could have happened, any things could have been happened by other people other than members of the Russian government or the Trump campaign that were still allied with Trump. You make a powerful point, Marcy.
Well, and we actually, and I point this out in my piece, but we have at least one moment where we know for a fact that Trump's floating of pardons affected Mueller's ability to get to the underlying issue. And that's with Paul Manafort. So Paul Manafort supposedly cooperated with Mueller last September rather than going to trial. And in the process, he lied. He lied about a number of things. But one thing in particular that he lied about was a meeting on August 2nd, 2016, that he had with Konstantin Kilimnik, where he gave Kilimnik polling data, recent detailed polling data from the Trump campaign. And in the same conversation, in the same meeting, they discussed a quote-unquote peace plan for Ukraine, which basically amounted to Russia getting everything it wanted, and also sanctions relief. And that's important. So he lied about it. And as they were litigating whether or not the lie was sufficiently important so as to find him in breach of his plea agreement, Andrew Weissman said quite clearly the reason that he believes Manafort lied on this point in particular is because he needed to do so in hopes of getting a pardon. So Trump floated him a pardon. Manafort refused to tell the truth about a key issue on whether he gave that polling data to Russia to help Trump win the election. And as a result, Mueller did not come to a conclusion, did not find evidence of whether or not the Trump campaign conspired with the Russian government. And by the way, Kilimnik, while he has ties, according to the FBI, to Russian intelligence, he's not the Russian government. So even there, the exonerations don't address this ongoing relationship with Konstantin Kilimnik. But that's a case where it's crystal clear that Trump's obstruction prevented Mueller from reaching the case.
So let me summarize. So there was evidence of a crime that Trump floated a pardon. After the floating of that pardon, the question is whether it's because of, but after the floating of that pardon, post hoc does not necessarily ergo propter hoc. Right. After the floating of the pardon, Manafort lies, and that prevents, that blocks an indictment on that charge. And you're saying, and you think you think that instance itself could have been sufficient to bring an obstruction charge.
Yeah, right. And I don't know, and I hope Attorney General Barr gets asked about this. I don't know whether he considered that unrelated to the question of conspiring with the Russian government because Mueller didn't reach that issue, or because Konstantin Kilimnik himself is not a member of the Russian government. Same thing with Natalia Veselovskaya. She's not Russian government, but she clearly is somebody who was working with the Russian government at the time on a different legal case. So if the standard that Barr used to find a crime is whether Trump conspired with the Russian government, as opposed to Natalia Veselovskaya, as opposed to Konstantin Kilimnik, as opposed to WikiLeaks, then we're not going to get there, because there was a cutout at every level of the operation. But we also know that at least in that instance, the Paul Manafort instance, Trump had floated a pardon, Manafort lied, and that lie went to the heart. And this, the judge in the case, Amy Berman Jackson, was quite clear on the lie went to the heart of whether or not Mueller could answer the question, did Trump conspire with the Russians?
And this may just be a dumb question, but why do you think, what's most important to you about getting the report itself?
Well, there are lots of questions about what Barr did. It's not even clear that Mueller asked him to make a determination about whether Trump obstructed justice. Barr himself, in addition to testifying under oath 3 times that what Trump has already been known to do amounts to obstruction of justice, he also has said that if the president obstructs justice, the proper remedy for that, he doesn't say the proper remedy for that is for the Attorney General in 48 hours to review it and give him a clean bill of health. The proper remedy for that is impeachment. The proper remedy for that is to bump it over to the House Judiciary Committee and let them decide. That is the constitutional remedy.
I have to say, I'm a little frustrated. I may be more than a little bit frustrated about the media characterization of this. One that I'll give is the CNN headline, which says, Barr: Mueller finds no Trump-Russia conspiracy. Forgive the mind-reading question. Why do you think that headline bothers me?
Go ahead and explain it, because it goes beyond what the letter says, but it does take some parsing to get to that.
Yeah, it does, because even the cherry-picked sentence, the single sentence that does the most work in the whole 4 pages, it starts with quote, and then a T that was not capitalized in the original text. Yeah, a little bracket to make the T capitalized. That's the big question. What's before the T? What's before the T? Because the investigation did not establish, important word establish, that members of the Trump campaign, important word Trump campaign, conspired to coordinate with the Russian government, important word government, in its election interference activities. That does not preclude, if that sentence were true, it does not preclude any number of other sentences. It does not preclude a sentence that says the investigation not suggest everything after that. It does not say the investigation not establish that friends of Trump did not do everything that was just said. It does not say, it did not establish members of the Trump campaign coordinated with people other than the Russian government, but just Russian other human beings. Or change that one out, or leave all that the same and establish, keep everything else the same. And instead of election interference activities, include other stuff, policy-making activities. So to lead from that, even just the established word, it does not say we have reviewed this and find no Trump-Russia conspiracy. That was not found. What he found was there was no chargeable crime. I know it might seem a small thing. To me, it seems big. Am I overstating the case?
No, I think you're stating it quite well. And it may well be the case that Barr's memo is a fair representation of what Mueller has done. But what comes before the T, right? It could say, Roger Stone, Don Jr., both did conspire with Russians, but they're not part of the Trump campaign, and I wasn't ordered to look into the son and the lifelong aide, political advisor. It may well say, we found abundant evidence that the Trump campaign, that Trump engaged in a quid pro quo, where they said, thanks for the help, we'll give you policy considerations if and when we win. That would be a conspiracy. It's not covered in the two very narrowly described things that Barr addresses as far as the conspiracy, which amount only to the trolling and to the hack and leak. And the hack and leak is limited just to the Russian government. It doesn't explicitly say this, but it very much does not include WikiLeaks, for example.
What do you think happens now, and what do you sort of hope happens now?
Well, I've given up hoping that...
Just given up hope generally, I understand.
I would have liked us to get some closure, especially on Russia. Like twice today, I've had to explain to people that this investigation did not start because of Christopher Steele. This investigation started because a crime was committed. A hostile foreign nation hacked both the Democrats and the Republicans. That's why the FBI started investigating it. They started investigating Trump because a Trump campaign aide found out the Democrats had been hacked before they had.
Thank you also to Marcy Wheeler, whose column in the New Republic titled, Yes, Trump Obstructed Justice, and William Barr is helping him cover it up. We're just wrapping that conversation now. Marcy, at the risk of, or more than the risk, at the cost of asking you to repeat some of what you were saying just off air, what do you think happens now? What should we be watching for?
Well, Congress is going to get involved.
Yeah.
They've already called Barr to testify. It sounds like Mueller will testify as well. It sounds like there's abundant, very damning evidence about what Trump did in here. And it sounds like what Mueller set up is a referral to the House Judiciary Committee because they are the one constitutionally empowered to determine whether or not the president broke the law. If you have a memo that says Trump can't be indicted, and DOJ does, then DOJ has absolutely no business weighing in on it. The House Judiciary Committee does.
Your view is essentially that Bill Barr is Robert Bork 2.0, that he's the guy that came in who was willing to do the protection of the president.
Yeah, and just yesterday I was saying we need to give him the benefit of the doubt. But as I keep saying, he testified under oath 3 times. He was asked, can the president issue pardons to get people not to testify against him? Basically, I'm paraphrasing. And 3 times he said that would be a crime. And yet yesterday he decided that's not a crime somehow. And again, it seems like the way he got there was by so narrowly defining the crime that he believed Trump was trying to cover up that he somehow was able to give him this exoneration, which A, it's not his constitutional place to do, and B, he swore under oath 3 times that what Trump is known to have done is a crime. So I don't know how he got. I guess the only conclusion you can reach is that it was not an honest determination.
This gets me to a point that we haven't made yet, and might be tied for the most important question. Is it your assertion or your thought that what we know is criminal? There's 2 ways of critiquing this. One way of responding to this is, well, Bill Barr got it right, and thank goodness our 2-year national nightmare is over, and we can continue with the business of cutting taxes for the rich and melting the planet. That's one possible worldview. Another is that Is it, well, we don't know. We need to know what's in the report because we don't know what happened, and what we don't know might have been criminal. What you seem to be suggesting is something different, which is what we know is criminal, and what we need to figure out is a process to bring that to justice. Am I interpreting that correctly?
Well, even if it isn't criminal, right? And it may well be. You and I have talked about the other conspiracies that might come before that T in that sentence, right? Even if it isn't criminal, the standards by which presidents are judged are, according to DOJ that Bob Barr under oath says he still buys, the sitting president may not be indicted. The way to keep a president accountable, and this is for crimes and for abuse of office, is to impeach him. So according to what Bob Barr is on the record saying, the appropriate thing to do is for HJC to determine whether A, a crime has been committed, but B, whether Trump abused office in such a way that he should be impeached.
Because impeachment is different than a criminal standard. I just want to say thank you. What's a question I should have asked you that I didn't? What are you hoping that the media is covering better than they have done so far, either in the last 2 years or the last 24 hours?
I would hope that they would say, so 5 of Trump's close aides were indicted for lying. If you take what they admitted to lying about and you map it out, again, it lays out the other conspiracy you and I are talking about. And that has fallen by the wayside. Any discussion of what his aides lied to cover up and what any obstruction that Trump himself would be covering up points to a very different conspiracy, and I think we need to be talking about that as well. So
be clear about that. Say in clear terms the other conspiracy that you're suggesting is being covered up.
Several times during the campaign, Trump's people said to the Russians, or Trump's people were in a conversation where the Russians were offering dirt, were offering assistance, and Trump's campaign in response was saying, okay, we'll talk about sanctions relief.
Yep.
And then even before Trump took office, Mike Flynn was talking with the Russians about sanctions relief. So there's very much the look of a quid pro quo,
sure,
where Trump took the help in the campaign, maybe didn't help hack the computer, but took the help, and in response tried to give Russia sanctions relief.